I totally forgot he had that letter. Yuzuru brought me to a room that probably served as a waiting area for patients and a parlor for friends and family. He then went to another room, leaving me all by myself. I was just grateful he'd let me wait somewhere warm. If what Masuki said was true, then that meant this man was his uncle.
お待たせしました。
Yuzuru turned to me with some tea on a tray.
昔は何人か勤めていた人間がいたのですが、今はもう誰も残っていないので、自分たちで何事もやらなくてはならないので。
すみません。
I took the steaming hot cup and warmed my hands with it.
千鶴さんからのお手紙は拝見しました。あなたに協力してほしいと記されていましたが。
ええ。去る事件の調査を警察から頼まれまして。
そうですか。ああ、千鶴さんはお元気ですか？
I mean, as well as one could. I mean, she did have, her adoptive daughter go disappearing, a few weeks ago. Months ago. Well, more close to a year ago at this point, I guess. Also, the state her daughter was in prior to that wasn't very ideal either. Use it to change the subject. Yes. Let's just keep it at that. We don't need the gruesome details. From what I could tell, anyway.
こちらに来たばかりの頃、彼女には不眠などの症状が現れていましたが、白血病までは診断できませんでしたから。
それは仕方のないことだと思いますよ。今はお一人で診察をされているのですか？
いえ、院長の父がいます。今は往診に行ってますが。ああ、そうだ。すみませんが、少々お待ちいただけますか。
Yuzuru left the room again. Nothing else to do, I simply sipped at my tea. Should I ask him about Nanako Sawashiro, too? Considering she'd once worked here, Yuzuru probably knew her better than most. Yeah? Or maybe I should just ask about Chizuru today and question him on Nanako another time.
何度もすみません。
Yuzuru returned.
こちらを千鶴さんにお返し願えませんか？
Is it the roll of film? Yeah, yep. The old type of film using cameras. 120 film, as it was called.
これは
おそらく千鶴さんが忘れていったものだと思いますが、何しろその頃カメラを持っていたのは彼女くらいでしたから。
You've been holding on to that for 17 fucking years. I'll give you props for that one.
どこにあったのですか？
それがずいぶん前に亡くなられた方の遺品の中にありました。10年以上前のことなので詳細はわかりませんが。
That's interesting. Wait, what? So that's got to be whoever stole the... So is that the empty film roll that someone stole from her? And in which case, who was it then? Was it Saya? Over a decade ago, it's been 12 years since Saya died and Ayako ran away. Ayato. So was Saya the one who stole the film? Because obviously she would have been working at the shrine, she would have known that people were taking pictures. Oh. And they just found that in Saya's belongings? He pinched the film between his fingers. The printing on the backside was faded. I felt old just looking at it. What's more, the film itself was extremely loose, meaning it had likely been left out in the light for a long time.
その亡くなられた方というのはどなたですか？
しぐさ神社のさやさんです。
So she is the one who stole it. Saya Shigusa. That was the woman Masuki, Ayato Hinagami, confessed to killing. Though that said, Nanako Sawashiro had told a different tale, one where she died of illness. Probably shouldn't press him on that topic just yet.
この集落に病院はこちら一軒だけですか？
I hastily changed the subject.
ええ、さほど人もいませんから十分間に合ってます。
The woman running the inn had indeed been rather hale and hearty in spite of her advanced years.
病気になった場合でも製薬会社から無償で薬が提供されていますから、患者さんの負担は少ないんですよ。
それはひながみ製薬ですか？
ええ、もうずっと昔から薬の提供はしているみたいです。
Must have been their way of giving back to the locals.
おや、お客さんかね。
Oh god, let's see how old So looks. Elderly man's voice chimed in.
ああ、お父さん。 こちらは東京から
he
いらっしゃった
retained the
時坂
sauce.
さんといって
So
口木さん
retained
の
the
お知り合いだそう
sauce.
です。
He's aged, but he's still got the sauce that he once had. Yuzuru fucking lost it. Yo, so he still got his nice. Yo, he's got a little bit of a. It's hard to see his mustache because it was always very thin anyway, and now it's white, which makes it even harder to see. But I can still. I'm pretty sure I still see the little gray strips along his lip there. He's still got the sauce though. That pointed goatee on him. His hair is still very similar. He's still got the sauce. For an old man his age, bro, he's still got the sauce. As much sauce as a man his age can have, he's got it. Yuzuru pales in comparison. Though I think from the jump we knew that Yuzuru had less sauce than So. I think that was pretty obvious just upon introduction. But it's a damn shame to see that Yuzuru lost all of his sauce, and So, yo, he's aged, but his sauce levels still maintained perfectly.
どうも、お邪魔しています。
This must have been So Kuroya, Chizuru's grandfather on her mother's side.
ほう、安忠君は元気かね。話では病院の院長も引退したと聞くが。
今は息子の文也さんが院長になられていますよ。
文也君もな、怪我さえなければいい外科医になれたかもしれないが。
Still, he nodded with pride.
お父さん、あちらの容体はどうでしたか？
まあ、あまりよくはないわな。
Oh.
飯も喉を通らなくなっているようだし
What
な
are we。talking about?
自分はこれで失礼。
I got up when I realized this conversation I shouldn't be privy to.
また何かお尋ねする機会があると思いますが、よろしくお願いいたします。
まあ、いつでも来なさい。
I left the clinic and returned to the crossroads. It seemed I was in the Kuroya's good graces thanks to Chizura's letter. Sadly, I doubted I'd have such luck with the rest of the residents. Still, that didn't mean I could just throw my hands in the air and give up. Scanned the settlement, spotted a giant estate to the east. No other houses in the area were that big. So if I were a betting man, I'd say it was probably the Hinagami's place. Guess now's as good a time as any to play dumb and see what I can get out of them. We can get the official story on Masaki, too. Yep, and then he's gonna show up and see Masaki there and be like, what the fuck are you doing? The closer I got, the grander I realized the estate was. The snow out front had been neatly swept away, leaving a space big enough to park a car. Just then, a woman who looked like a servant came out carrying a basin.
すみませんが、ちょっとよろしいですか。
The woman froze in
こちら
surprise.
はひながみさんのお宅で間違いありませんよね。
はい、そうですが。
The short woman set the steaming basin on the ground and tensed up. She seemed rather wary of my presence. Not that I blamed her, of course. I'd honestly gotten used to this sort of reception by
自
now.
分は東京から来た時坂と言います。
困ります。何もお話しするようなことなんてありませんから。
She was being awfully defensive, which of course was as good as saying she was hiding something big, at least in her mind anyway.
帰らないと、このお水が。
Top it all off, she even picked up the basin and aimed it at me.
失礼しました。
I feared I'd die of hypothermia before I ever got back to the inn if she splashed me with that stuff. And so I wisely decided to make a strategic retreat. Ah. Okay. She's probably doing that because I'm guessing she's aware of Reiji's connection to Ayato. She's like, oh no, we can't have Tokyo Detective coming in here and ruining things. Oh no, no, no. Never would have dreamed I'd see grandfather look so frail. That was the thought that struck Masaki after he'd left his grandparents to themselves. Perhaps such a drastic change was only to be expected, seeing as over a decade had passed. However, it didn't change the fact that he still had no intention of taking over the Hinagami family.
綾人様、
Yuka returned from outside just then, setting the empty basin in the living room.
今怪しげな方が外をうろついているようですから、お気をつけてくださいね。
怪しげな
He's like, Yuka, that's my friend.
東京から来たと言って、うちを探っているようでした。
Yuka was shaken and flustered. Masaki knew exactly who she was talking about, but found himself at a loss for how to explain him to her.
お水をかけるって脅かしましたら、方法の手で逃げて。
Oh, he's going to give me hell for this later. Knowing that made Masuki wish she really had splashed him, but he kept that thought to himself.
親父は東京に行ったままかい？
ええ、お嬢様も今はあちらでお仕事をされています。
That means we gotta leave tonight.
明日？
年末ですからね。今年は綾人様もいらっしゃい
Oh
ます
yeah, it
し、
is.
久しぶりに
It's
賑
gonna
や
be
か
a
な年
bad
越
New
しにな
Year's
り
to
そうで
remember,
す。
but we're gonna fucking remember it, all right. Yuka smiled. Masuke wondered whether he'd still be around for New Year's. He knew that Reiji planned on returning to Tokyo before then, which meant the man could only stay in Hitogata another 2 days if he wanted to make it back in time. Masuke had to get back too. He didn't plan on staying, but that wasn't to say he didn't feel guilty for getting Yuka's hopes up either, intentionally or not.
綾人様がいなくなってしまってから、すぐにさやさんが亡くなられて、
Right, now that he's in
直りさん
Tokyo.
や奈々子さん
Forgot
も
about that.
東京へ行ってしまわ
I
れ
was
ま
waiting
し
to
た
see
か
him
ら。
show up at some point. Yeah, he's in Tokyo.
さやさんが亡くなった時のことを。
Nanako's account of Saya's death had been clearly contradicted the truth of the matter. Thus, Masuke wanted to clarify the differences right away.
確かいなくなった綾人様を探している最中にさやさんが倒れられたという話がありまして。
So everyone goes out searching for Ayato, and then while a lot of people are gone from the village, oh, Saya strangely collapsed, and there were very few people around. Yuka stared off into the distance as if she was literally looking into the past.
黒谷のお医者様が診察されている際に息を引き取られたそうです。
Which means Yuzuru was in on it.
心不全とのことでした。
I knew it. That is even remotely close to what happened. Why is that the official story? Is the whole village trying to cover up the murder? If so, for what purpose? To cover for me? No, they're probably more concerned about protecting the Hinagami name. There'd be a massive scandal if it got out that one of their own was a murderer after all. That was the conclusion Masuki reached. He couldn't think of much else that added up so perfectly. I returned to the crossroads. Frustrating as it was, talking to the Hinagami family would have to wait, unless I wanted to end up in an ice sculpture, that is. That leaves just one other place. I looked up at the mountain ahead. A road led to the shrine archway. The staircase probably led up there, but at present the steps were buried in snow, which turned into an unforgiving uphill climb. Man, that looks like hell to scale. Should I really go for it? A closer look revealed that the shape of the stairs had been carved clearly to make them simpler to ascend. One wrong step could easily send someone to a trip to the hospital. Well, I could have just waited at the bottom for someone to come down. That might have taken hours. Plus, I was growing colder by the second, so the idea of getting in a little exercise to warm up made the risk appealing. Thus, I steeled myself and began my ascent. I climbed up the sections of the staircase where the stone was visible. The gentle slope went on until the shrine archway eventually came into view. Almost there. Shouldn't be much longer before I see the shrine. Unfortunately, I was already beat by that point. My legs were killing me from all the effort I put in to take careful and firm steps. So I took a break as I turned around and gazed upon the settlement. The residents' houses, all decked out in triangular thatched roofs, looked as though they'd sprouted out of the snowfield. All in all, it was a rather small settlement made up of dwellings that lined the narrow plain created by mountain streams. The population was probably somewhere in the 100 to 200 range. Essentially, it was a small environment perfect for a select few individuals to hold all the power. Not that I could understand what point there was in that, though. Okay. I turned back toward the archway. Just a little further. Suddenly I noticed a narrow path branching out to the side as I approached the archway. Oh. Most of it was buried in snow, though, with traces of only the bare minimum of shoveling visible. It certainly wasn't the type of path I could traverse with my shoes. Not that I wanted to, of course. This turned out to be the only way to the shrine, and screw the visit. Though that said, it was unlikely, considering the fact that the archway wasn't facing said direction.
そこで何をなされているのですか?
Kensei? An unfamiliar voice sent me turning around. Yeah, Kensei looks like Kensei. There I found a middle-aged man in priest robes watching me.
すみません。自分は東京から来た時坂と言います。
宮司の仕草健生と申します。
The man bowed.
参拝をされるのでしたら。
Kensei pointed in the direction of the shrine
こ
archway.
の先には何があるのですか?
I, on the other hand, gestured to the narrow path buried in snow.
その先には祠がありまして。 むやみやたらに近づいてはならないと伝えられています。
Kensei approached me and circled around to my flank, subtly blocking the path as though worried I wouldn't heed his warning.
祠ですか。何が祀られているの？
ヒンナ様です。もっとも実際に祀られているのはここではありませんが。
And there it was.
ヒンナ様というのは
I played dumb.
そうなりますかね。たたり神ですから乱に触れてはならぬものとされています。
たたり。
拝殿はこちらですのでどうぞ。
Kensei tried to lead me through the archway. He seemed hell-bent on keeping me away from that path. It wasn't like I had any business there anyway, so I did as he suggested. Besides, I really didn't want to deal with wet shoes again. A short walk past the archway gave way to a clearing that was home to a grand shrine. It was built completely differently from the thatch-roofed houses at the bottom. Any who ever needed proof that religious faith held considerable power in Hitogata need look no further. I could only imagine the hell it must have been to haul the necessary lumber all the way up to the mountain.
時坂さんは何のためにこちらへいらっしゃったのですか？
Kensei's question interrupted my musings.
東京の警察に頼まれましたね。
Decided honesty was the best policy here. If I'd made up some random BS, that would have probably come back to bite me later if he ever discovered the truth.
とある件と
Kensei's interest was piqued naturally.
戦前、こちらに仕草道夫という方はおられましたか？
I started from the most tangential detail possible.
私の妻の兄、仕草家の長男です。ただ私が婿入りする前、大正の頃には出奔してしまったとのことですが。
失礼ですが、健生さんのお年は？
一昨年地名を迎えました。妻は今年です。
So he's 52, huh? Considering that would mean Michio Shigusa had run away in his 20s before subsequently founding the Congregation of the Blessed in Tokyo. Sound like we had the right Michio Shigusa here.
出奔してからのことは何かご存知ですか？
いえ、何分婿入りする前の話ですから。
Kensei shook his head. He didn't betray any indicators regarding his sincerity. If Michio Shigusa's family knew about what he'd done, then they would probably be too ashamed to even mention it. Still, I now had a clear link between the two Shigusas. Okay, it's time to finally get to the heart of the
で
matter.
は、こちらの集落にいらっしゃった高宮めぐりさんが東京で亡くなったことは？
ええ、殺されてしまったとか。
その現場にこちらでヒンナ様と呼ばれている土人形が残されていました。
え、どういうことですか？
こちらの風習に詳しい方が身近におりまして、詳細を尋ねたところ、昔ここで起こった事件でも似たようなものが発見されたとか。
I kept a close eye on Kensei as I stressed that point. His surprise seemed genuine from what I could tell.
こちらではタタリと言われているそうですね。
確かに昔はタタリと呼ばれた出来事がありました。しかしなぜ高宮さんが？
我々はそれを調べています。なぜ東京で殺されたのか。
本当にヒンナ様のタタリであるならば。
Kensei breathed a faint sigh.
人を殺すのは例外なく人ですよ。
There was no such thing as curses. A human was carrying this out, that much was clear.
戦前にこの地で起こったタタリ騒ぎも犯人は捕まっていませんね。
何をおっしゃりたいのかよくわかりませんが。
Kensei was playing the fool. Though honestly, he probably had to. If I were in his shoes, I couldn't very well have admitted that humans were behind the curse. Though that could also be interpreted as him covering for the killer.
こちらに勤めている方で、この1ヶ月東京へ出かけた方はいませんか？
いません。当社は仕草家の人間しかおりませんから。
Kensei's visage tensed ever so slightly. If it really was just his family working here, then that only made his claims all the less credible.
型通りの確認事項ですので。
Now probably wasn't the best time to garner their hostility. I looked at the shrine and the thought of leaving a donation crossed my mind.
こちら、賽銭箱はないのですか？
Odd, considering most places had them right in front of their shrines.
参拝客が少ないので、こちらで奉納帳をつけていただいています。
Kensei pointed over to the shrine's office.
そうでしたか。
Rats. Not gonna be able to get away with just tossing in a 5 yen or so then. Oh well, might as well bite the bullet anyway. With that thought in mind, I head over to the spot Kensei pointed out. Middle-aged woman was manning the desk.
妻のミヤです。
どうぞいらっしゃいませ。
どうも。
I took a 100 yen bid out of my wallet after we'd exchanged pleasantries.
こちらに記帳をお願いいたします。
Afterward, I flipped through the ledger Mia handed me. There are already names listed alongside their donations in there, albeit not a whole lot of them. Hinagami, Kuroya, Hinagami. The Hinagamis had donated a sacred branch back in March, probably as an offering for the festival. The rest of the entries were labeled fees for sacred branch, so they likely were indeed offerings. I wrote fees for sacred branch 100 yen in an empty column along with my name and address.
ありがとうございます。
自分はもう少しこちらに滞在しておりますので。
I left the shrine after delivering that textbook detective cop spiel. The sun was already setting over the western mountains by the time I returned to the inn, going slowly back down those stairs, so I didn't trip was probably to blame for that. Sunset came early to the mountains in winter, leading to a rapid drop in temperature. I was freezing my buns off, so I was actually really looking forward to getting inside, hashing out a plan for tomorrow with Masaki. Suddenly you opened the door and almost bumped into me, but fortunately I caught her before she fell.
すみません。大丈夫でしたか？
However, I frowned a moment later when I noticed what she was carrying.
連れの荷物では？奴に何かあったのですか？
お連れ様は。
ひながみ。
That nitwit. Was that why they turned me away at the door?
やはりあの方はリヒト。いや、ひなが。
あなたは気づかれていると思いましたが。
いえ、祖母、狼が知らせたようです。
That old lady, huh? She's one shrewd customer.
まあ仕方ないか。持って行ってあげてください。
He shifted Masaki's bag into her arms, bowed, and took off down the snowy streets to the Hinagami residence. Great. Now I've got no idea how things are going to play out. Guess all I can do is take my investigation up a notch now that his identity's out in the open. I entered the inn and took off my shoes. Well, not as bad as yesterday, my shoes were still wet from walking around all day, though it would have been a miracle if they weren't. That said, I wouldn't be taking that old woman's advice again. Turning them off my room this time seemed like the best idea. Oh, there she is now, speak of the devil.
お客さん。
なんでしょう。
I cautiously answered the old woman after grabbing my shoes and stepping onto the floor. She was likely in league with the Hinagamis, so I had to watch my mouth around her.
嫁入り前のうちの孫娘にちょっかい出すのはやめてくれないかね。
いや、そんなつもりは毛頭ありません。
Seriously? Is having a quick chat with the opposite sex all it takes to make you a skirt chaser in these parts?
嫁に行くまでは清い体でいてもらわな困るんだよ。
ご予定が終わりなんですか？
よそもんには関係ないよ。
She spat those words out and stormed away. I've been hoping to get some info out of her if the chance presented itself, but it didn't look like that'd be happening anytime soon. Oh well, time to kick back and dry my shoes. Masaki found himself antsy in his old bedroom. While this had indeed once been his room, it felt like a total stranger's by now. Only natural after over a decade, really. It was already dark outside, twilight having come and gone in an instant. He was overwhelmed by a newfound appreciation of how quiet night was in the settlement. Tokyo got dark too, but the air was more or less always full of the hustle and bustle of nightlife and passers-by. However, there was none of that here. No cars, no people, nothing. This was the environment that Masaki, Ayato, had been raised in. All of a sudden, Yuka called out to him from the hallway.
どうぞ。
The door opened, revealing Yuka and Yu.
ユウさんがお荷物を持ってきてくださいま。
リヒト。
Yu set Masaki's bag down and glared
ご
at
め
him.
ん、若女将。
Masaki bowed his head before she could lay into him.
どうして黙っていたのよ。
できるだけ知られたくなかったんだ。
じゃあ、どうして戻ってきたのよ。
それは。
Could have told her it was only because Tokisaka had wanted a guide. That was nothing more than a
す
front.
ぐ帰るつもりだよ。
綾人様。
悪い、ゆかさん。俺はもうここにいてはならない人間なんだ。
そんなことありませんよ。
Yuka shook her head.
大旦那様も大奥様も
Yeah, well,
綾
they
人
can
様のお
start
帰り
eagerly
で
awaiting
首を
once
長
again.
くして待っておられました。
They're clearly used to eagerly waiting. I'd hate to make them change their
後を
ways.
継がせるためだろ。そんなのはカレンに任せておけばいい。あいつが向こうを取れば問題ないだろうさ。
綾人様。
Yuka rebuked Masaki louder than she'd ever spoken before.
お嬢様がどのような状態なのか。
どういうことだ？
おひなは生まれつき、子供ができない体なのよ。
Oh. Interesting. You answered in Yuka's stead.
お嬢様が検査をされたのは綾人様が戦争へ行かれている最中でした。
Interesting. Interesting. This, I feel like that in some way lends credence to Karen being involved in these murders. I mean, I feel like she definitely is after Megari's murder. Because we know that Nanako couldn't have committed it. So it feels like that one was very obviously Karen, especially given the fact that whoever murdered Megari clearly cared for her, right? Yo, when we saw like the murderer's perspective, it was very clear that they said that they didn't want to do this. They didn't want it to be this way. They wished it didn't have to have been her, but they had a goal they had to achieve or what the fuck ever. So I feel like that was very much Karen then. And I feel like her infertility has to play into that. In the fact that she's, carving out people's wombs and fucking throwing dolls up in there. Yeah. Yeah, I could believe that. Especially when two of them were ones that were making passes on Ayato. We still don't know exactly what the second victim's connection is. We know they're connected to Senri, and that Senri's connected to the Shigasas. There was something else, wasn't there? Oh yeah, like her father... Oh right, didn't her father work at Hinagami Pharmaceuticals? Wasn't that something? Do I have access to my notes?
それに
No? Alright.
男の子にする話じゃないわよ。
I mean, I get that. That is something that, like, when you're a teenager, you don't really bring up to your bro, like, hey, guess what? Can't have babies. Because the last time you saw his sister, they were both 18. And at that point, you're still kind of insecure about those things. You don't really just bring that up and be like, hey, bro, guess what? I'll give you that much. Mosky reeled from the revelation. If both of them were saying it, then it must have been true.
私、お客様がいるから帰るわ。そうそう、リヒト。時坂様が明日会いに行くとおっしゃっていたわよ。
時坂様というのはどなたですか？
リヒトと一緒に東京から来た警察関係の人みたい。
東京から？あ、もしかすると私。
あの人は警察なんかじゃありません。
そうなんだ。
You got up.
では、私はこれ。
ああ、気をつけて。
You left, leaving Yuka and Masuki all
明
alone.
日は親父とカレンが帰ってくるんだろう。
そのことなんですが、先ほどお電話がありまして、旦那様は帰ってこられなくなったそうなんです。
親父が？
That was a huge load off Masuki's mind, at least.
明日はお嬢様と七子さんがこちらに到着するそうです。
七子さんも？
Why her? Thought she moved away just like me. Oh, is Nanako the new arranged marriage? Is that what's gonna happen?
ですから、今日はゆっくり休んでくださいね。
Yuka bowed and left the room. Masuki kept lying on the floor. Couldn't get his thoughts straight. A painting he'd once made long ago still hung from the wall. Where did the boy who loved drawing go? Masuki shook his head shortly after entertaining that question. That boy had died long ago. The man lying here now, Tomoyuki Masuki, is nothing more than a mismatch of worthless refuse. Goddamn. Alrighty then. Headed for the bathhouse in the back of the inn after dinner. The hot water warmed me to the core. Though my fingertips felt almost painfully itchy at first, they stopped bothering me over time. I sank deeper and deeper until only my head was above the water, then looked up to the night sky. Though it wasn't snowing, it was still frigid as hell. Fortunately, not even my exposed face was cold, thanks to the hot water. On top of that, I had the bath all to myself, since no other guests were here. Guess I do have something to thank Masuki's blown cover for, after all. I savored the warmth as I entertained a thought even I had to admit was horrid. The door to the bathhouse opened just then. Well, couldn't see very well since there was a ton of steam and I was at the edge of the bath. It seemed I wasn't alone anymore. Wait, the only ones here aside from me are...
あら
Damn, girl. Damn. We ain't never really seen you out that kimono. Damn. Alright. Homegirl got curves. Don't get it twisted. Alright. That hidden beauty type shit. Oh, thank God. I won't have to gouge my eyes out after all. Wait, no, hold up. I shouldn't be counting my blessings just yet.
二見さん。
時坂さん。
ええ。
Staring at her would have been like staring at the sun, so I looked as far away as I could.
露天風呂は男女共用ですから。
You sat on a bathing stool. There she began washing herself. I didn't look, of course. That said, I caught a glimpse of her milky white back against my wishes. That was just my male instinct at work, unfortunately. Our eyes found themselves there whether we wanted them to or not. Seriously, how is the hell is she so calm?
時坂さん。
You suddenly called out to me.
はい。何ですか。
I looked away again as I answered her.
警察の方ではなく探偵だそうですね。
Damned nitwit spilled the beans, didn't he?
警察から依頼を受けているのは事実ですよ。
そうなんですか。
You soap fell out of her hands and slid towards me. As a result, she turned in my direction and met my gaze.
すみません。
いえ。
I promptly grabbed the soap, only to just as quickly realize the dilemma I was in. I was still in the bath. Normally I'd have just gone up to her and handed it over, but at the moment I was having a, problem below the waist, so to speak. It'd have been humiliating to walk up to her while covering it with a towel, but on the other hand, it'd be labeled a pervert if I just marched over my birthday suit. You nodded, covering her chest with a towel. A second later, I slid the slope across the ground with the best push I could muster.
ありがとうございます。
You bowed to me after picking up the soap that landed by the bucket. Almost gotten a glimpse of her unmentionables. Man, is this woman bold or clueless? I'm starting to feel like an idiot for getting so tense. Though unfortunately none of this was helping a certain tense something loosen up. You joined me in the bath when she'd finished washing herself. Far away from me, of course.
いい湯ですね。
山で湧いている温泉を引いています。
You faced me and explained.
特に露天風呂というのがいい。雪が降っていれば風情もひとしおでしょうね。
明日の夜には雪になるという話です。
そうですか。
I looked up at the sky. Though it wasn't clear, I could still see far more stars twinkling than in Tokyo.
二見さん、この集落について聞かせてもらえませんか。
I raised my voice, figuring I'd never get another chance like this again.
普通の山村ですよ。ここにずっと住んでいる限りは。
住んでいない者にとっては。
どうでしょう。よその人間がここを訪れることはほとんどありませんから。
ほとんどないのに旅館があるのかい。
昔は養蚕の関係者や行商人が来ることもあったそうです。今では集落内の人が時折ここに浸かりに来るくらいですね。
そこまで外の人間の出入りがないのか。
何もありませんから。
You took a breath and sank all the way down to the tip of her nose. Pretty sure part of the reason they had an inn here was so they could spy on visitors. They had to be constantly watching the guests' every move, at least considering how quickly they'd unmasked Masaki. Thus I couldn't afford to pull any reckless stunts here. That said, my current plight was about as reckless as things got. I glanced at you. All but the tip of her head had sunk under water. Frantically hurried over her. Why? Did the heat get to her? Whatever the case, I'd be damned if I let her drown. Fortunately, she was already wearing a towel, so I carried her over toward the bathing stool and set her atop the drain boards. Don't play that music. Don't play that music. Hey, don't play that music, alright? Easy. Whoa. Everybody, let's calm down. Guys, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait. Like, hey, Reiji, I'll give you credit. This one's at least of age, so thank God. But, like, buddy, no. Buddy, my guy, my dude, no. Her body was red as a beet, rather from being in the water for so long.
大丈夫ですか、二見さん。
Figured fanning her would be the best way to cool her down, but unfortunately the only thing I could make wind with was the towel wrapped around my waist, and that wasn't something I was willing to part with, regardless of the circumstances. Well, there was something else I could use. Oh, her towel? I don't know, Reiji, you can't remove that. She moaned, really delirious from the heat. I had to do something and fast. Like what? Pussy? You deaf brain? No means no. I instinctively gulped. So close to seeing. Wait, what the hell am I thinking? This isn't the time for that. I have to cool her down fast. With what? The snow? Maybe it'd be best to wake her up. Teddy? What do you want me to click on? Cool her off with the snow. Her arm is covered in sweat, the titty, the exposed skin, the thigh. I was but a few centimeters from getting an actual look. I guess end investigation. Stop screwing around. I'll just wake her like a normal person.
二見さん
You stirred.
なお
She mumbled a name.
二見さん起きてください
Gave her a little shake to snap her out of it.
時坂さん
You faintly opened her eyes and gazed up at me.
大丈夫ですか湯船でのぼせてしまったようですが
申し訳ありません。お客様に。
Her cheeks flushed, likely from the heat, and she looked down. Standing right at the end of her sight was a certain intimate pal of mine who was making a very prominent appearance. Ha! His cock's poking out through the towel. You got up and made a beeline for the bathhouse. I decided to step back into the bath and leave my nosy little buddy. Once my nosy little buddy had his fill of standing at attention.
本当に申し訳ございませんでした。
You bowed deeply when she entered the room.
いや頭を上げてください
ですが、
True, but I did get a feast for the eyes out of it, so we were square. Not that I could say that, of course.
時坂様がお先に入浴されていたのですから。
You tried to excuse her behavior in a fluster.
その申し訳。
そうお気になさらずに
I was the one who felt like
そうだ
apologizing.
先ほど気になったのですがなおち
そんなことも言っていたのでしょうね。
You hung her head.
なおちゃんというのは黒谷委員の直りさんのことです。
Naori Kuroya, huh?
確か東京にいるとか
ええ。大学に行くと言って戦争が始まってすぐくらいに東京へ。
その人と何かあったのですか
いいえ。何もありません。
You shook your head. Someone clearly had a crush, but it wasn't my place to ask about that. Not that I'd ever intended
とこ
to.
ろで先ほどは聞きそびれてしまったのですがヒンナ様について聞かせてもらえませんか
ヒンナ様のたたり。
You sat up straight and took a deep breath.
この地では昔からたたりと呼ばれるものが起こっていたことはご。
She glanced up at me. Was that her way of implying that I wouldn't have known about the curse without having looked into it already?
ヒンナ様はたたり神ですが、きちんと祀れば望みを叶えてくれると言われています。
だからこそよその家が祀る場合誤った方法で祀られてし
But would anyone brave those risks? Did they really have a wish that was worth endangering their life for? And besides, why would someone go to such lengths to keep anyone else from worshipping Lord Hina? Humans were behind the curse. That much was undeniable. As such, it was plausible that someone connected to the Hinagamis and or Shigasas committed all those atrocities. But why? To protect their family status? Maybe there had indeed once been an era when such acts were considered necessary, but the notion was far too anachronistic in our modern world.
二見さんはいわゆる本物のヒンナ様をご覧になったことはあります
本物でしたら、ひな神のお屋敷に祀られています。
That corroborated Masaki's claims. In that case, did that mean no one apart from the Hinagamis and Shigasas even knew what exactly Lord Hina was? Was really kept under such strict lock and key.
実物を見たことがなくてもヒンナ様がどのようなものかは
知っているというか、これがヒンナ様ではないかと考えたことは。
これとは
昔お祭りの前にひな神カレンさんが土人形を作っていたんです。
Yeah, that's true. Karen would know how to
し
make
ぐ
the
さ神社の
dolls.
方が指導されていました。
Like, outside of the Shigasas, Karen was taught how to make those dolls. That is something to remember. And she was the only one who did that, remember? Because Megari and you here both just sat there and made like origami cranes and whatnot while Karen did all the work of making the actual doll. Right? So outside of like the Shigasas, Karen's the only one who would know that. Karen's the only one who would have that information on how to properly make the Hina dolls. A clay doll.
詳しい説明はされていませんでしたが、
カレンさんがヒンナ様を
でもお祭りの日に巫女が舞を奉納して、その際に壊してしまったので。
I lined up with the basic outline of the festival Mosky had laid out for me.
巫女が祭りで壊したものはカレンさんが作った土人形で間違いないのですか？
はっきりそうだと断ずることはできませんが。
それは誰かがタタリだと認定したのですか？
いいえ、そんなことはないと思います。
祭りの後に必ず人が死ぬというわけではありませんよね。
もちろんです。そうだとしたら毎年人が死んでいることになってしまいますから。
でも十数年ごとにタタリが起こる。
生まれる前のことはよく知りませんが、祖母の話ではそうだということです。
Maybe I should have a chat with this lady. And again, she hates outsiders, so I doubt she'd let anything slip so easily.
話を聞かせていただいて。
Ended my line of questioning there, figuring I'd gotten all the info I could at the moment.
いえ、こちらこそご迷惑をおかけいたしました。
You bowed deeply.
それでは失礼いたします。
You left my room. I dragged an ashtray over and lit up a smoke. I dragged on an ashtray. It was all but certain that the Hinagamis or the Shigasas, or both, were behind the curse here. However, no matter how hard I racked my brain, I ultimately couldn't figure out why they would be involved with murders back in Tokyo. That is the question, isn't it? And I still feel that Karen is a massive part of it all. Next morning was so nippy I'd been this close to calling off the entire investigation. Part of me would have loved nothing more than to hole up at the inn all day and soak in the open air bath until I achieved enlightenment. But alas, I had to speak to Masaki. Thus, it was with great lament in my heart that I left the inn and braved the snowy roads that led me toward the heart of the settlement.